The desert holds its breath as the first light of dawn brushes against the ancient stones of Giza. The sand, unchanged for millennia, glows gold beneath the same sun that rose over the builder's hands thousands of years ago. Time feels still here. Or perhaps it's moving in ways we no longer understand. The pyramids don't simply stand, they wait. Each block, each angle, each shadow tells a story written in a language of light. The Great Pyramid's edges face true north with an accuracy modern engineers still struggle to replicate. Its sides are not random. They mirror the cardinal directions of the Earth itself. Yet these alignments, so mathematically pure, seem to whisper of something deeper. An understanding of cosmic rhythm. When the stars shift, when the heavens precess, the pyramid's orientation remains perfect, as if it was built not for one age, but for every age. Egyptologists tell us this precision was achieved by rudimentary observation, by tracking stars, measuring shadows. But the deeper we look, the harder that story becomes to believe. The alignment doesn't just fit the skies of ancient Egypt. It fits skies thousands of years before that and thousands after. It's as though the architects weren't just recording their moment in time. They were setting a mark outside of it. How could they have known about axial precession? The slow wobble of the Earth's axis, a phenomenon that takes over 25,000 years to complete. This knowledge wasn't confirmed by modern science until the era of Copernicus. And yet the layout of the pyramids perfectly mirrors the constellations of Orion's belt as they appeared in 10,500 BCE, a date long before Egypt's supposed dawn. Coincidence? Or code? Imagine standing beneath those vast stones, feeling the pull of something ancient and intelligent, a geometry so intentional it transcends the limits of human timekeeping. Every corner is a compass, every shaft, a clock hand pointing toward the stars. The pyramid is less a monument and more a machine, one that calibrates itself not to the hour or day, but to the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. Perhaps to the ancients, time was not linear. It was a cycle, a breathing organism, alive and recurring. They didn't measure it, they conversed with it. The pyramid may have been their way of anchoring that conversation, a message to the universe. We understand your rhythm. We too are eternal. Some researchers have begun to see patterns that echo quantum ideas, resonance, vibration, harmonics, all hiding within the stone blueprint. When sound or energy moves through those chambers, the air hums at frequencies tied to the Earth's own pulse. It's as if the builders designed the structure to respond to something far beyond our senses, to time's vibration itself. And maybe that's why we can still feel it. Tourists describe a strange sensation when stepping inside, an inexplicable calm, a disconnection from the modern rush of minutes and seconds. For a moment, it feels as though the present dissolves and something older or newer looks back through the void. The ancient Egyptians didn't just build tombs. They built instruments. Instruments that could listen to the universe breathe. Instruments that might hold the key to why we perceive time at all. So perhaps the question isn't how they achieved this, but why? What did they hope to find in these alignments? What did they learn from watching the heavens turn over endless ages? As the sun rises perfectly over the pyramid's edge, as it has flawlessly for thousands of years, one thought remains impossible to escape. They weren't measuring time. They were trying to master it. To understand time meant they had to trap it. Beneath the dunes of memory, Egypt hides a voice, one that never truly fell silent. The ancients called him Thoth, the god of wisdom, writing, and time itself. They said he was not born of flesh, but of thought, the living intelligence that spoke the universe into being. In the temples of Hermopolis, scribes described him as the keeper of the divine library, a place where the past and future met in endless dialogue. According to the old myths, Thoth recorded the future in the past. He inscribed the unfolding of all ages, events yet to happen, into sacred texts known as the Emerald Tablets. These were no ordinary scriptures. They were said to contain equations of eternity, truths that could bend space, alter perception, and unlock the rhythm of time itself. Pharaohs and priests did not merely worship Thoth, they sought to decode him. His wisdom was not about gods and men, but about cycles and returns, the endless looping of existence. To the modern mind, such tales sound like allegory. Yet as science probes deeper into the nature of time, the echo grows uncomfortably familiar. Physicists now speak of timelines branching and merging, of information traveling backward, of particles entangled across ages. The quantum world bends the same way Thoth once wrote: fluid, nonlinear, recursive. The myth and the math, divided by millennia, now stand side by side, whispering the same truth. Time is not what we think it is. Ancient Egyptians may have known that time wasn't a river flowing forward, but a spiral, folding over itself, allowing echoes to cross between past and future. Their rituals, their architecture, even their hieroglyphs were more than worship. They were programs, coded into the very stone. Each symbol carried resonance, each ceremony an algorithm for remembrance. The priests of Thoth didn't just keep history, they engineered it. And if Thoth's legend is true, he warned them of what would happen when humanity forgot this knowledge, when we began measuring time instead of understanding it. His wisdom became buried beneath sand and stone, waiting for those who could listen again. And buried deep within the Great Pyramid is where the real story begins. The Great Pyramid stands as the last survivor of the ancient world's 7 wonders, a structure so old, so precise, that even today it defies imitation. It has endured earthquakes, erosion, empire, and time itself. Yet the mystery is not that it still stands. The mystery is how it was built to begin with. Beneath its simplicity lies a geometry so deliberate, so incomprehensibly accurate, that it almost feels alive, as though it were designed to converse with the cosmos. The numbers themselves are not coincidence. The height of the Great Pyramid multiplied by 43,200 equals the exact polar radius of the Earth. Its base perimeter multiplied by that same constant mirrors the planet's circumference. How could a civilization 5,000 years old have known the shape and scale of the Earth with such accuracy? A feat modern science achieved only after satellites circled the globe. Within its angles and proportions hides the constant of pi, the golden ratio, and the geometry of light. The ratio of its height to the perimeter matches the circle's circumference to its radius, as if the pyramid were translating a sphere into a square, heaven into earth. Was it a monument or a mathematical message? Mainstream archaeology insists these are coincidences, artifacts of creative interpretation. But coincidence loses its power when precision repeats itself across every facet of the design. The builders didn't merely pile stone upon stone, they encoded universal constants into limestone and granite. Every measure hums with harmony, every edge aligns with a celestial truth. It's as though they wanted to freeze perfection in form, to anchor eternal laws in physical matter. The more we study it, the less it resembles a tomb. There are no hieroglyphs, no treasures, no royal markings inside, only cold, flawless geometry. No mummy has ever been found within its chambers. So if not a tomb, then what was it? Some theorists call it a cosmic clock, others a power plant, a resonance machine, or even a message to eternity. Whatever it was not random. Its creators wielded mathematics as if it were divine scripture, using numbers the way others use prayers. The Great Pyramid may have been their way of speaking to the universe in its own language: vibration, proportion, frequency, form. And perhaps this was their real genius. They built something that could not decay, something that could outlast every word, every empire, every memory. When all else was forgotten, the geometry would remain. Silent, perfect, eternal. Coincidence or code? Maybe the difference lies only in perspective. To those who built it, there was no division between science and spirit, between formula and faith. They understood that numbers were not human inventions. They were the fingerprints of creation itself. These were not tomb builders. They were engineers of cosmic design. Deep within the Great Pyramid, beyond the narrow shafts and echoing corridors, lies the king's chamber. A stark granite room that feels less like a tomb and more like an instrument waiting to be played. The walls hum with silence, the air dense with unseen vibration. Step inside, and even a whisper seems to hang suspended, as though the room itself refuses to let sound die. Modern acoustic studies have revealed something astonishing. When specific tones are emitted within the chamber, the stone responds. Low frequencies create standing waves, patterns of resonance that bounce, merge, and multiply, forming a stable field of vibration. Researchers from sound engineering labs have recorded these tones, finding that the granite walls amplify them naturally, almost intelligently, as if the entire room were tuned to a particular frequency. The result isn't random. The chamber seems to resonate in harmony with the Earth's own vibration. The Schumann resonance, the subtle electromagnetic heartbeat of our planet. It's a phenomenon that has baffled scientists. Was this just coincidence? Or did the builders know what they were doing? The precision of the chamber's dimensions, the choice of red granite, a material rich in quartz and piezoelectric properties, and the air shafts aligned to specific star systems all point toward design, not chance. The granite doesn't just reflect sound, it translates energy. Every pulse that passes through it creates microcurrents, tiny flows of energy that could interact with magnetic fields. In ancient myth, sound was sacred. The universe itself, they believed, was sung into existence. To speak was to create. If that belief was literal, then the Great Pyramid might not have been a resting place at all, but a resonant device, a tool meant to harmonize with the frequencies of the cosmos, to bridge energy between the Earth and the stars. Standing in that chamber today, you can feel something beyond explanation. A pressure in the air, a subtle hum beneath perception. It's as if time itself vibrates. Perhaps the builders weren't honoring the dead. Perhaps they were tuning reality. What if the king's chamber wasn't meant to hold a body, but to awaken one? On a cloudless night above Giza, the stars burn with an ancient familiarity. Among them, 3 points of light gleam in perfect alignment: Al-Nitak, Al-Nilam, and Mintaka, the celestial jewels of Orion's belt. Their arrangement in the sky mirrors something unmistakable on the ground: the 3 Great Pyramids. Not approximately, not symbolically, perfectly. In the 1990s, researchers began noticing a strange correspondence between the Giza layout and the Orion constellation. The more they measured, the more uncanny it became. The pyramids' relative spacing, their angle, even their offset from a straight line, all match Orion's belt as it appeared not in 2500 BCE, when the pyramids were supposedly built, but around 10,500 BCE. A date that rewrites human history. A date that, according to our textbooks, shouldn't be possible. To the orthodox scholar, this is a coincidence, a trick of human pattern seeking. but the data says otherwise. When computer models of the sky are run backward through millennia of precessional drift, the slow wobble of Earth's axis, the match becomes perfect precisely at that epoch. And here's the twist. Even NASA's own astronomical software confirms this alignment down to fractions of a degree. Whoever designed the Giza complex encoded a sky no human eyes should have been able to see. The question isn't whether the alignment is real. It is. The question is how. How could ancient builders, supposedly limited to rudimentary stargazing, predict a celestial configuration that existed 8,000 years before their time? To map the heavens so precisely would require not only long-term observation but a working knowledge of precession, a phenomenon modern science didn't quantify until Hipparchus in 130 BCE. Some researchers proposed that the pyramids were copies, blueprints handed down from a forgotten civilization, one that understood time as a continuum, not a line. Others believed the builders themselves were heirs to a memory that reached beyond their age, knowledge preserved, perhaps even transmitted across cycles of destruction and rebirth. If so, the Orion alignment wasn't just architectural genius, it was communication, a message through time. Orion to the Egyptians was Osiris, god of death and rebirth, ruler of the afterlife, symbol of eternal return. The pyramids were not only mirrors of the stars, but gateways between worlds, physical anchors for celestial counterparts. The pharaoh's journey to the afterlife was not metaphorical. It was a reenactment of the cosmic cycle itself: death, resurrection, return. So when we gaze at the pyramids, we are not merely looking into the past. We are staring into a memory of the future. Someone, or something, once knew exactly where the stars would stand across epochs, and they left their knowledge carved in stone. How did they calculate celestial positions from thousands of years before they existed? Perhaps they didn't calculate them at all. Perhaps they remembered. In the shadow of Egypt's golden age, a single text emerged that defied time itself: the prophecies of Neferti. Written during the reign of Pharaoh Snefru, centuries before many of the events it described would unfold, it tells of chaos, famine, and a coming ruler who would restore balance to the two lands. Scholars call it political poetry, but the precision of its foresight has always unsettled those who read between the lines. The scroll speaks of rivers drying, foreign invaders rising, and a savior king emerging from the south, a figure historians later identify as Amenemhat Khum, founder of the 12th dynasty. Yet this text predates him by hundreds of years. Coincidence, say the Yado experts. Convenient retroactive prophecy. But what if it isn't? What if the scribes weren't merely recording the hopes of their age, but transcribing echoes from another? In ancient Egypt, writing was not invention, it was invocation. Hieroglyphs were alive, each symbol a vessel of power, an interface between thought and creation. To write something was to make it exist. And so, when Neferti saw the future, perhaps he was not predicting. Perhaps he was hearing. The Egyptians believed time could speak, that reality vibrated with memory. If the past could echo forward, could the future not whisper back? Modern physics now flirts with the same forbidden idea. Quantum theory suggests that particles can influence one another across time, that cause and effect may dance in both directions. In the strange geometry of the subatomic, information does not obey chronology. It loops, it bleeds, it returns. And suddenly the language of prophecy sounds less like mysticism and more like data traveling across dimensions of awareness. The prophecies of Neferti may have been exactly that, an ancient download from the field of time itself, a transmission caught by a mind attuned to the frequency of eternity. To the Egyptians, this would not have been magic. It was divine order, Mat, the balance of truth weaving every age into one living tapestry. Perhaps the scribes of old were not dreamers but receivers, recording the vibrations of futures not yet born. And if that's true, then prophecy isn't prediction at all. It's remembrance. Long before Newton measured gravity and Einstein bent space-time, another figure was said to have unlocked the very architecture of reality itself. Thoth, the Atlantean priest-king whom the Greeks later called Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great. Legend says that when the old world fell beneath the flood, Thoth carried with him a library of eternal truths. Truths he engraved upon emerald slabs, imperishable and luminous. These became known as the Emerald Tablets, fragments of a forgotten science disguised as divine revelation. Their words still ripple through centuries. As above, so below, as within, so without. On the surface, it is a spiritual axiom, but beneath it may conceal a scientific blueprint, the recognition that the same laws governing the cosmos also shape the human soul. Ancient initiates saw no division between physics and metaphysics, between the atom and the star. Reality was a single pulse, vibrating through infinite scales of being. To understand one was to understand all. The tablets describe existence not as a straight line, but as a circle without end. Time, they claim, is not something that passes. It rotates, spiraling like the stars around the pole, like the serpent eating its tail. The ancients believed this cycle was not metaphorical. It was measurable, predictable, and navigable. If time moves in cycles, then the future is not an unknown. It is a returning pattern. The Egyptians called this eternal recurrence the Zep Tepi, the first time, the moment when gods walked with men. But the secret, they hinted, was that the first time never ended. It merely repeats in higher and lower harmonies through endless ages. In this worldview, prophecy is not foretelling, it's recognition. The past and future coexist, spinning around the same axis. The Emerald Tablets describe the soul as a traveler through these rotations, reborn not by chance but by resonance, drawn back to experiences it has not yet lived, yet already remembers. Modern physics has begun to circle back toward this ancient intuition. Theories of quantum loops, closed time-like curves, and multidimensional simultaneity hint that time may indeed be nonlinear. The future might already exist, woven invisibly into the fabric of the present. What Thoth described in allegory, science is now sketching in mathematics. If so, then the tablets were not mystic riddles. They were instructions, warnings, perhaps even coordinates. Man is a star bound to a body, one tablet reads, until he has found the path of light. To the uninitiated, it is poetry. To the initiated, it may describe a consciousness capable of transcending the time loop, a being who remembers forward. Thoth's secret was not that time flows, it was that time breathes. It expands and contracts like the lungs of the universe. And those who learn its rhythm, who align their consciousness with its pulse, no longer move through time at all. Time moves through them. In the heart of ancient Egypt, where the Nile bends like a serpent around sacred ground, stood the city of Hermopolis, the city of Thoth. To the untrained eye, it was merely another temple complex dedicated to a god of wisdom and writing. But to initiates, Hermopolis was the pulse of the mystery schools, a place where divine knowledge met tangible power. Legends whispered that beneath its foundations lay a hidden vault, Thoth's library, a chamber sealed not with doors but with equations. The priests called it the House of Eternity. Within it was said were stored the machines of time, relics that could reveal the hidden rhythm of existence. Some texts describe these as crystal mechanisms, others as golden orbs that sang when touched, vibrating in tune with the stars. They were not weapons or ornaments. They were instruments, devices meant to expand human perception, to let the mind step outside the narrow corridor of linear time and glimpse the full circle of creation. Greek scholars later spoke of these mysteries in hushed tones. The philosopher Iamblichus wrote that Thoth's disciples possessed instruments that moved by divine breath, tools that allowed the soul to travel beyond the confines of the physical world. The line between myth and technology blurs here. Were these metaphors for spiritual initiation, or literal devices from an age when science and spirit were one? Some archaeologists have noted anomalies beneath Hermopolis. Sealed chambers that appear on ground-penetrating radar but have never been excavated. Others point to strange inscriptions depicting priests manipulating glowing discs, hieroglyphs of energy spirals and stars connected by cords of light. To most, these are symbolic. But what if symbolism was the only way the ancients could record the unrecordable, the physics of consciousness itself? The Egyptians believed that knowledge of such power could not be exposed to the unprepared. To misuse it would invite catastrophe, to see beyond the veil without understanding the cost. So the library was hidden, protected by both stone and myth, awaiting a time when humanity was once again ready to hear what it had to say. If such relics existed, someone wanted them buried forever. Time has always been the pyramid's greatest ally, and its most dangerous witness. For centuries, historians have agreed that the Great Pyramid was built around 2500 BCE under Pharaoh Khufu. Yet when scientists attempted to confirm this through carbon dating, the results whispered a story that refused to fit neatly within the textbook timeline. In the 1980s and 1990s, several independent teams took samples from the mortar and surrounding materials of the Great Pyramid. To their surprise, the dates didn't converge on a single era. Some fragments matched the expected age, but others came back thousands of years older, up to 12,000 years in the past. The official explanation was simple: contamination. Older organic material, they said, had mixed into the newer structure, a clerical shrug in the face of an impossible number. But what if those older readings weren't contamination at all? What if they were inheritance, traces of an earlier civilization, a previous construction phase long before dynastic Egypt began? The idea suggests that the pyramid was not an innovation of Khufu's reign, but a restoration of something far older. Perhaps the pharaoh merely claimed ownership of a relic he could not truly understand, a machine from an age that had already fallen into myth. Across the plateau, weathering patterns tell the same rebellious story. The Sphinx, carved from limestone, bears erosion marks not from wind or sand, but from rain. Heavy, sustained rainfall that last touched the Giza region more than 8,000 years before Khufu's time. If the Sphinx and the pyramid share builders, then our history is not just slightly off, it's fractured. Mainstream Egyptology dismisses such implications as pseudoscience, an affront to decades of academic order. Yet beneath the surface, quiet whispers persist among geologists and engineers. Experts who see too much precision, too much endurance to accept the primitive narrative. Could the builders have been survivors of an earlier cataclysm, inheritors of knowledge from a civilization erased by flood or fire? In that light, the carbon dating paradox becomes less an anomaly and more a clue, evidence that time itself has folded, that history may loop rather than progress. The ancients might not have built forward into time but backward, reconstructing remnants of a golden age whose traces still hum beneath our feet. We call it an error because we fear what it implies, that our ancestors were not the dawn of civilization, but its echo. And perhaps that's the pyramid's cruelest irony. Not that it defies age, but that it remembers one we've forgotten. In museum basements and forgotten storerooms lie objects that shouldn't exist, relics that mock the limits of their own age. Among them are precision-drilled granite cores, machined diorite bowls, and tube-cut stone fragments whose craftsmanship rivals modern engineering. These are not myths. They are catalogued artifacts, excavated from the ruins of ancient Egypt, each bearing the unmistakable mark of tools far beyond copper chisels and stone hammers. The diorite bowls, for example, exhibit symmetrical curvature with tolerances so tight they would challenge today's machine lathes. The granite drill cores show spiral striations, evidence of cutting speed and pressure inconsistent with any known ancient method. Engineers like Christopher Dunn have demonstrated that replicating such precision would require diamond-tipped tools or ultrasonic equipment, technology officially 21st century, not 25th century BCE. So what were these artifacts? Tools? Ritual vessels? Or perhaps, as some have dared to suggest, components, pieces of a larger system dismantled and scattered by time. Imagine a machine disassembled, its purpose lost, its fragments reinterpreted as ceremonial objects by cultures too distant to understand their function. To the priests, they were offerings. To the scientists of a forgotten epoch, they might have been instruments of energy, resonance, or communication. Mainstream archaeologists brush these anomalies aside, labeling them outliers, products of chance or unexplained skill. But the deeper one looks, the harder it is to accept coincidence. The pattern is too precise, too pervasive to be dismissed. Across the ancient world, and from Giza to Abydos to Saqqara, we find the same impossible craftsmanship, the same silent fingerprints of a vanished intelligence. The question then is no longer if the evidence exists, but why it was ignored. Were these objects remnants of an advanced pre-dynastic culture? Or, as some whisper, the tools of those who once manipulated time itself, devices that resonated with frequencies no longer accessible to us? Every discovery adds weight to the impossible. Every artifact a whisper from a civilization that should not have been able to exist. Were these tools or components? The answer may lie buried not in the sand, but in the silence of the scientists who refuse to ask. To the ancient Egyptians, death was not the end, it was a change of state. The afterlife wasn't a distant heaven or underworld, but a continuation of existence through another frequency, another phase of reality. Their tombs were not graves, they were transmission chambers. Inscriptions on temple walls speak of traveling through the fields of time, crossing dimensions guided by sound, light, and sacred geometry. The soul, they believed, did not rise to the stars. It vibrated into them. The Book of the Dead, far from being a funerary text, reads more like a manual for transmutation. Its verses instruct the soul to pass through the portals of flame, to rise as light within the eternal circuit. To modern eyes, this is poetic spirituality. But look closer, and the language hums with physics, with energy, resonance, and motion through unseen fields. Could these portals have been descriptions of consciousness slipping between energetic states, the same way matter passes through quantum barriers today? In quantum mechanics, particles can tunnel through walls of energy, disappearing from one side and reappearing instantly on the other. To the observer, it looks miraculous. To the equation, it's natural. Perhaps the Egyptians knew this in their own symbolic way. To them, life and death were not opposites. They were adjacent frequencies. To die was to move from one vibration to another, guided by rituals designed to stabilize the transition. Inside temples like Abydos and Dendera, reliefs depict figures surrounded by coils of energy, standing within ovals, not halos, but resonant fields. Some inscriptions describe the soul as a spark that walks among the stars. The implication is chilling and beautiful. The human being as both biological and photonic, a fusion of matter and light. What we call spirit, they might have called frequency. The heart weighed against a feather wasn't morality, it was measurement. The pure soul, free from density, could ascend through lighter vibrations, escaping the gravitational pull of matter itself. And those who mastered the process, the priest kings, the initiates of Thoth, became timeless. They didn't escape death, they engineered it. Perhaps this is why they built machines of stone and sound, to test the boundaries of transition, to replicate in the body what they already understood in the soul. Death to them wasn't annihilation. It was migration through time, a controlled leap between dimensions of existence. And so, when the Egyptians spoke of eternal life, they weren't promising immortality in a mythic paradise. They were describing a system, a technology of consciousness, that allowed one to transcend the linear flow of past, present, and future. The afterlife, in their eyes, was not beyond time. It was time itself, seen from the other side. In the tombs of the Valley of the Kings, the walls come alive with color and motion. Solar boats glide across dark rivers, carrying the sun god Ra through the halls of Amduat, the 12 divisions of the night. Each hour he passes through a gate, greeted by guardians of flame until he is reborn at dawn. To the modern tourist, it's mythic art, but to the initiate, it's a map, a diagram of the soul's passage through dimensional gateways. The Egyptians didn't imagine the sun sinking beneath the horizon. They believed it was traveling through space, vanishing from human sight as it entered another plane. The Amduat was a field of energy and time, a labyrinth of transformation. The gates were not metaphors. They were thresholds, each tuned to a specific vibration of being. In the artwork, these gates are shaped like elongated ovals, portals through which the bark of Ra sails, surrounded by serpents coiling in spirals. Some scholars see simple decoration, others see geometry. Spirals that mirror electromagnetic fields, energy flow, even the curvature of space-time. Could these depictions represent an ancient understanding of what we now call wormholes? Pathways linking distant points of space and time. The journey of Ra through night to day mirrors the journey of consciousness through life to death and back again. Each gate, each hour, a shift of energy, a recalibration of the cosmic cycle. To the Egyptians, this was not fantasy. It was a blueprint of how energy moves through dimensions, encoded in sacred art. Perhaps that's why they painted it so vividly. Not to worship the gods, but to remember the mechanism. The walls of the tombs weren't decoration, they were instruction. They taught the soul how to navigate the machinery of eternity. And if these stargates were more than myth, if they described something the ancients had seen or even used, then the halls of Amduat weren't just a metaphor for the afterlife. They were a map of the universe's hidden architecture, a reminder that death, dawn, and time itself are all doors in the same eternal corridor. In 2017, a quiet tremor shook the world of Egyptology, not from an earthquake, but from a revelation buried in data. Using a technology called muon tomography, a form of cosmic ray imaging capable of peering through solid stone, scientists mapped the Great Pyramid's internal structure in unprecedented detail. What they found defied expectation. A vast hidden chamber sealed for more than 4,000 years, stretching above the Grand Gallery like a ghostly echo. The discovery should have rewritten textbooks. Instead, it disappeared into a fog of silence. Officials confirmed the anomaly but refused further comment. No new explorations were authorized. No public reports followed. The world's greatest architectural enigma had just revealed another secret, and almost immediately the gates closed around it. Muon scans are not speculation. They are physics. These subatomic particles rain from space, passing harmlessly through our bodies but slowing when they strike dense material. By tracking their patterns, researchers can create images of voids and chambers unseen by any camera or radar. And those patterns don't lie. Something enormous exists within the Great Pyramid, a space that should not be there. Theories began to multiply. Some argued it was a construction void, a space left intentionally for stability. Others believed it could house relics, inscriptions, or even the elusive Ark of Egypt's own mythology, an energy device or artifact of divine origin. Yet every attempt to probe further met with resistance. Government permits stalled, funding vanished. Scholars were silenced with bureaucratic phrases like "further analysis pending." Why the secrecy? If it were merely structural, why not release the scans? Why no images, no excavation, no answers? What could be so dangerous that even light must not touch it? Whispers spread through scientific circles, of internal reports locked away, of foreign teams barred from access. Some say fragments of preliminary data leaked to private archives, showing readings of anomalous electromagnetic activity within the sealed void. A resonance that shifts with time, like a heartbeat muffled in stone. Could this chamber be what ancient texts called the House of the Hidden One? Could it contain relics of Thoth's lost science, preserved beneath the pyramid's eternal geometry? The official narrative remains unchanged. Nothing to see, nothing to know. But beneath the sands, the pyramid waits, holding its breath. It's as if something inside is being contained, not discovered. And maybe that's the point. After all, what if the Great Pyramid was never meant to be opened again? What if it was built to guard what lies within, not from us, but from time itself? When discoveries vanish, history holds its breath. Among Egyptologists and independent researchers alike, there's a recurring pattern. Data goes missing, notes lost, photographs erased, digital archives corrupted beyond recovery. It's the kind of coincidence that stops feeling accidental after the third or fourth time. One of the earliest cases dates back to the 1980s when a French expedition allegedly conducted underground scans beneath the Sphinx and Great Pyramid using ground-penetrating radar. Their reports mentioned subterranean anomalies, potential tunnels or cavities leading deeper than any known map. But before the findings could be published, the data was confiscated by authorities and the research license abruptly revoked. The reason? Security concerns. Decades later, similar silence surrounded the muon tomography results. Backup drives disappeared. Websites hosting early datasets went offline without notice. Some team members claimed their access credentials were revoked overnight. The official statement cited data integrity issues, but insiders whispered that the information had been classified. Science does not fear correction. It thrives on it. Yet when the pursuit of truth threatens established narratives or geopolitical interests, knowledge becomes a liability. Billions in tourism and national heritage rest upon the foundation that ancient Egypt was purely Egyptian, not the legacy of a forgotten civilization, not evidence of lost technology. A single verified anomaly could destabilize centuries of academic certainty. So the files vanish, the voices quiet, the record is rewritten before the story can begin. But fragments remain. Archived copies, stray notes, unredacted logs retrieved from forgotten corners of the internet. Enough to hint that what was found beneath Giza was not just structural. It was active. Maybe that's the secret nobody wants to confront. that the pyramid isn't a monument to the past but a machine still running, humming softly beneath layers of stone and denial. Science doesn't hide its findings, unless the truth rewrites history. In laboratories across the modern world, physicists now toy with something the ancient priests of Egypt might have called forbidden magic. The idea that the future can influence the past. It's known as quantum retrocausality, the strange phenomenon where particles appear to respond to events that haven't happened yet. Experiments in delayed choice and entangled photons have shown that the act of observation, consciousness itself, can alter the outcome of reality, even across time. Cause and effect begin to blur, replaced by an elegant loop in which past and future continuously rewrite one another. If information can travel backward, even in subatomic whispers, then time is not a river flowing one way. It's an ocean, with currents moving in all directions. And suddenly, the ancient Egyptian obsession with cycles, with rebirth, with eternal return, starts to look less like myth and more like early physics. Their rituals were not random ceremony, they were technologies of intent. The priests of Thoth chanted in harmonic frequencies, using sacred geometry and rhythm to align the mind with cosmic order. The temples themselves were designed as resonant chambers, places where vibration, sound, and consciousness merged. What if these rituals were not pleas to gods, but experiments, attempts to tune human awareness into the underlying frequency of reality? Modern researchers like Dean Radin and Roger Penrose have speculated that consciousness might be quantum, a field that exists outside of time, capable of influencing events across temporal boundaries. Could the Egyptians have discovered this thousands of years ago through their own brand of empirical mysticism? When a priest recited a hymn to Ra at dawn, he wasn't just praying. He was syncing the temple's resonance, the geometry of sound, light, and intention, with the solar cycle, perhaps even anchoring time itself to human awareness. Their hieroglyphs for magic, Heka, literally meant the activated word. Speech, vibration, geometry, all were forms of directed energy, and energy, as we now know, is information. The line between incantation and equation begins to dissolve. Quantum physics tells us that particles exist as waves of potential until observed. The Egyptians believed the same of reality, that nothing exists until it is spoken, named, brought into vibration. They saw the universe not as a machine, but as a living consciousness resonating in feedback loops between gods, humans, and stars. So perhaps their temples weren't merely places of worship, but laboratories of consciousness, early attempts to manipulate the fabric of reality through focused intent. What we call superstition, they may have called science, and what we call science, they may have already mastered. The Egyptians believed the human spirit was not a single entity but a pair of forces, the Ka and the Ba. The Ka was the life essence, the vital spark that remained tethered to the physical world. The Ba was the traveler, the aspect of the soul that could move beyond the body, free across space and time. Only when united could they form the Akh, the luminous being, whole and eternal. To the modern physicist, that duality feels eerily familiar. Quantum theory describes entanglement, a phenomenon where two particles remain connected no matter the distance between them. When one changes, the other responds instantly, as if distance and time don't exist. Could the Ka and Ba be poetic expressions of the same truth? Two aspects of a single existence, forever linked beyond material separation? In the Egyptian worldview, the soul's journey after death wasn't departure, it was synchronization. The Ba would travel through the realms of light, gathering wisdom and energy before returning to reunite with the Ka. This merging completed the loop. Spirit and matter entangled once again. The process sounds mystical, yet it mirrors the very structure of reality we're beginning to uncover. energy and consciousness intertwined, influencing one another across invisible networks. When seen through this lens, the funerary texts and temple rituals take on new meaning. The chants, the symbols, the geometry. They weren't superstitious gestures, but mechanisms designed to maintain entanglement between body and spirit, between the seen and unseen. Their science was spiritual, and their spirituality scientific. Perhaps this is the message that modern science is slowly rediscovering. That consciousness is not separate from the universe, but the very field through which it exists. The Egyptians encoded it in myth. We express it in mathematics. Two languages for the same phenomenon, the eternal dialogue between energy and awareness. Maybe the key was never mechanical, but mental. There are stories that even the sands refuse to tell, fragments of myth too dangerous to survive translation. Among them is a legend whispered through fragmented papyri and oral echoes that the ancients once tampered with time itself. They called it the experiment of the gods, a ritual so advanced, so precise that it blurred the line between technology and divinity. Its purpose was simple and terrifying: to make time resonate. Some scholars believe the Great Pyramid and its surrounding structures formed not a necropolis but a temporal array, a system designed to amplify harmonic frequencies until they reached a point of interference with the planet's own magnetic field. The priests of Thoth, masters of geometry and vibration, might have sought to open what they called the gate of eternal return, the bridge between the cyclical and the infinite. If they succeeded, even for a moment, it would have been unlike anything humanity has ever witnessed. A field of energy folding inward, collapsing the boundaries between past, present, and future. An experiment not in space, but in sequence, an attempt to bend causality until it sang. The aftermath, according to the myth, was silence, a catastrophic resonance that shattered the harmony of the earth, fracturing civilizations and rewriting history. Ancient texts speak of floods, of stars changing position, of the sun rising where it once set. Perhaps this was not metaphor but memory, a global consequence of time snapping back upon itself. If true, then the collapse wasn't just physical, it was existential. The knowledge was buried, sealed beneath layers of language and ritual, hidden from those who might try again. The priests became guardians of a wound too vast to heal. They called it the first ending. And maybe that's why the Great Pyramid was built the way it was, not as a gateway to power, but as a containment vessel, a monument not to victory, but to loss. Every angle, every alignment designed to neutralize the frequencies once unleashed, to keep the world stable, to keep time from fracturing again. It's said that those who rediscover this knowledge will face the same temptation, the desire to open the door once more, to peer beyond the veil of chronology. But the ancients left a warning, carved in silence, written in stone. They opened time's door, and it refused to close. The pharaohs often spoke of themselves as guardians of the cycle, custodians of Maat, the divine balance that kept heaven and earth aligned. To the uninitiated, it was theology. To the few who understood, it was duty, the sacred task of keeping the flow of time intact. The crown was not merely a symbol of power, but of responsibility. To disturb the cosmic rhythm was to invite collapse. Perhaps they inherited this burden from the priests of Thoth, those who had once glimpsed the machinery of eternity and realized its danger. They sealed away the blueprints of the forbidden experiment, burying the technology within myth, disguising science as story so that no ruler or seeker could wield it again. The curse was not punishment from the gods, it was precaution from the wise. And yet, humanity forgets. Again and again we rediscover fragments of the same truth, and each time we mistake it for revelation instead of remembrance. The alchemists, the physicists, the dreamers, all chasing the same forbidden equation, believing they can master what the ancients only survived. We call it progress. They called it hubris. In every era, there are those who try to measure eternity, to tame it, to hold it still. But time was never meant to be owned. It was meant to be honored. The pharaohs knew that to control it was to lose it, that true wisdom lay not in domination but in restraint. Perhaps that's the real secret hidden within the pyramids. Not a power waiting to be unlocked, but a warning written in geometry. Do not disturb the cycle, because the more we chase the mechanics of time, the more it begins to chase us back. We've been running this loop for thousands of years, repeating the same curiosity, the same defiance, the same fall. And even now, beneath the hum of satellites and particle colliders, the echo remains. We've been chasing the same secret ever since. The desert is quiet now. The wind drifts low across the plateau, brushing against limestone blocks that have watched 1,000 generations come and go. At the edge of the Great Pyramid, a lone archaeologist stands, tools forgotten at his feet, eyes fixed on the horizon. The sun descends, and for a fleeting moment its shadow stretches perfectly along the ancient causeway, a celestial line drawn between earth and eternity. Above, the first stars pierce the darkening sky, aligning once more with the same constellation they mirrored 10,000 years ago. In that moment, the separation between past and present dissolves. The stones seem to breathe, not with the pulse of the living, but with the rhythm of memory itself. Every surface carries an invisible imprint, every grain of sand holding echoes of footsteps long erased. We think we study history, but perhaps history studies us. We measure time by what we lose, by decay, by distance, by death. But what if time remembers everything we forget? The archaeologist exhales, feeling the air vibrate against the pyramid's face, like the faint hum of an old machine still running beneath its age. He realizes the structure isn't dead, it's listening. The alignment of shadow and starlight is no accident. It's a synchronization, a heartbeat that connects this moment to countless others. Somewhere in that stillness lies a truth the ancients tried to preserve, that time is not a straight path, but a resonant field where every moment leaves a trace, a vibration that never fades. Perhaps this is why the ancients built in stone, not for permanence, but for memory. To create something that could hold the frequency of their thoughts, their prayers, their experiments with eternity. The Great Pyramid was never simply a tomb, nor a temple, nor a monument. It was a question carved into the bones of the earth, a question so vast it could only be answered by silence. As the last light of day sinks behind the dunes, the archaeologist feels a strange calm. The sense that he's standing not at the end of discovery, but at the beginning of remembrance. The whispers of myth, science, and spirit converge here in the hush between two heartbeats of the world. The night deepens, the stars return to their ancient places, and for an instant everything aligns, heaven and earth, past and future, the watcher and the watched. In the silence of the stones, the universe remembers itself. We like to think of time as a straight line, a thread stretching from what was to what will be. But maybe it's more like a circle or a spiral looping endlessly through its own reflection. Every era believes it stands at the edge of the unknown, yet perhaps we've been here before, building, discovering, forgetting, remembering. The faces change, the languages fade, but the questions remain the same. Maybe time travel isn't about moving through centuries or bending physics. Maybe it's the moment when consciousness awakens to its own recurrence, when we realize we're not moving through time at all, but within it, like notes vibrating through a single eternal chord. The ancients might have understood this better than we do. Their temples, their rituals, their geometry, all built to remind them that life itself was the echo of something endless. Modern science now circles the same truth through equations and experiments, searching for what ancient builders already carved in stone. Every discovery we make, quantum entanglement, temporal paradox, cosmic resonance, feels like remembering, not inventing. We're rediscovering what was once common knowledge, that the universe is not a place we inhabit, but a story we're still telling ourselves. As the stars drift across the sky above Giza, their patterns mirror the pyramids once more. The alignment completes just as it has countless times before and will again long after we're gone. The stones remain patient, unblinking, recording every thought, every sound, every fleeting heartbeat of humanity's restless search. Perhaps that's the final secret, that we were never outside of time, never lost in it. We were always part of its rhythm, its endless loop of creation and remembrance. And as the night deepens and the constellations take their places over the desert, a single truth lingers in the silence between stars. Maybe the pyramids weren't built to reach the heavens, but to remind heaven where to find us again.